What's up? Welcome back to the Mindshare Podcast. I'm David Greenspan, and this is episode number 366, the final episode of the year. Now, I've gone back and forth on this one, on how I wanted to approach it. Part of me wanted to end the year quietly. Another part of me wanted to burn the whole thing down. And then part of me thought about going all fluffy on you with New Year's resolutions, but I'm not a fluffy guy. So that idea went out the window, real quick. But of course, as I'm always being straight with you, this year didn't just challenge business. It challenged my patience. It challenged my optimism. It challenged my tolerance for bullshit. And my belief that most people still operate with any real sense of loyalty, trust, or respect. Now, I know that our previous episode, number 365, I know it struck. I know it hit a nerve. And I think it did because people finally felt something. Felt something. Felt me saying it out loud. What a lot of people, I'm going to use the most people in this case, but what a lot of people have been quietly thinking for a long time now. And I want to thank you all for, everybody who actually reached out about the previous episode. I want to say thank you. Now, today isn't about chaos. We covered that one last week. Today is about what the chaos costs you internally and how you decide whether staying in the game is still worth it at all. I want to talk about standards. I want to talk about sanity. And we're going to talk about what it really takes to keep going into 2026 without losing yourself in the entire process. So let's start off by calling 2025 what it was. It wasn't just drama. It wasn't just difficult. But it was structurally and emotionally exhausting. The country didn't crash. Canada didn't totally crash. In fact, it completely stalled. And then it started to go in reverse. Think about this. GDP growth projected under 1.5% by the Bank of Canada. Household debt still sitting around 180% of disposable income. That's among the highest in the G7. We've got consumer insolvencies up 30% year over year in parts of Ontario. And the small businesses closing everywhere. In fact, it's outpacing the amount of openings we're getting in several of the provinces across this country. This hasn't been some shocking event where it came in and smashed everything and exploded and it was, oh my God, look what just happened. It's been more like death by 1,000 paper cuts. And the problem with these long, drawn-out grinds is that people don't prepare for them because you don't really see it coming or you don't know how to brace for it the minute it happened. We don't adapt early enough. Instead, because of that slow grind, people get tired. Then we get cynical. And then from there, we get careless. And if you add on top of all of this stuff, housing affordability, totally broken. Regulatory scrutiny, completely endless. When I talk about, the dysfunction of the government and just overall political dysfunction, I mean, we talked about that the other day in my REM article. Standards and the industry, never mind just the feds. And then there's this added one, which we're going to call algorithm-fueled outrage. When you're getting online and everything that it's feeding you is just anger and it's negativity. And then you get caught in this crazy loop of it all. And with all this, you get this population of people here in this country that are not just tired, but emotionally disengaged. And that is the real damage of what this past year did to us. People are drained from all angles. And right now, that's what most people are going to carry into 2026. But that can't happen if you can control it. So when we think about, obviously, always having action steps, and I tell you that all the time, And I do that on purpose because I want to lead you into the fact that off of what I just said, whether it was completely, motivational and fluffy, but we already agreed I don't do fluffy, or it was a complete rant to make a point on something. It is important, and let's just go here. It is important that we always have something we can come away with to say, okay, what am I going to do about that? Because it's one thing to bitch and complain about something. It's one thing to call something out. But if we haven't got answers for what we're going to do, then that's all it is bitching and complaining. And I don't do that shit. So, before you plan, well, shouldn't say that either. Because based on the time of the year that this is dropping, your entire 2026 should completely be planned by now. But one thing I'm going to add on for you here, and this is something that even with my coaching clients, we haven't gone over. Now, we've done we'll get to this in a little bit, but write down what drained you this year. Okay, so we're going to go in a little bit of a different direction here. Like, what drained you? And I don't be general about this, right? Be specific. Be concrete about your answers. If you don't figure out what actually drained you, then we just start to build on top of it all in the following year, and we never really get rid of it or deal with it. Because we can't, and obviously we can't carry that into the new year. And you might know what this is, but always remember, the power of the pen, putting pen to paper, it's going to help you take that subconscious thinking and make it conscious thinking, which then can make it live and breathe outside of your brain, which is an important thing to do, so we can actually do something about it. Okay, so go ahead and do that. Write down what specifically drained you this year. What was the most exhausting? What sat on your mind and your heart and on your chest where it's just, emotionally and mentally, you felt tired by it. Write that stuff down. Be sure you do that before the year is up. You could do that right now. You can hit pause right now and go ahead and do that. Now, if you're driving, I can understand. You're probably not going to stop your car in the middle of the road and do this, and I wouldn't suggest that you do that. Anyhow, I digress. I'm having some fun with you. Let's keep it going here, okay? Everything we're talking to, and when I talk about drain, this isn't about people being soft. This is about biology. And I know, I'm not claiming to be some doctor or scientist over here, but stay with me, right? Because the average Canadian now spends 6+ hours per day on our screens. And that's a StatsCan stat. Now, it's funny when I say that's a StatsCan stat, and I'm like, yeah, so you should believe it. Who the hell believes what any of these people at the top say anymore? But anyways, here's another one. The average phone user checks our device 144 times per day. Think about that. 144 times a day. That's not information. This is bottom line stimulation overload. Think about this, okay? When we go online, and you got to think about what you do when you pick up that phone, what the habits are. And I'm gonna throw a few out there. One is you swipe down to see what notifications are there, right? You start checking notifications, start seeing who messaged you by email, by text, by social, what the news is feeding you, God knows whatever other notifications you have coming through your phone. But we swipe down. Maybe what we do is we pop open email immediately and we start looking at email, or maybe you pop open social media immediately and you start scrolling on social. But when we think about social, it's not designed to technically inform us, okay? We're being fed, and we got to go backwards, right? Social was designed for us to connect with each other and have fun with each other, but now we're being fed with outrage about what's going on all over the world and people's differences of opinions on no matter what topic it is. Fear, and it is real. I mean, what has gone on? I do believe that here in North America, we've got complete amnesia. And I can't even say we, because I'm totally calling it out, and I see it clear as day. And I do know that there's many of you that I talk to that also see it the way I do. Amnesia. We have forgotten the people that we were at war with. We have forgotten about the people that have harmed us. We have forgotten about, what we've tried to create as safety over here. And meanwhile, social media is feeding this fear about the things that are happening. It's also feeding, obviously, only half the story. And we know to every story there's actually three sides to a story. Oftentimes, though, the algorithm feeds you one side of the story. So we start to make up ideas in our mind, and we start to sort of come to conclusions in our mind, and we start to have our own thoughts in our mind, and then it obviously triggers our emotions in the way we deal with things. Speaking of emotions, I mean, when you scroll social, never mind just the outrage and the fear and like the lack of it or the misinformation. But then there's the idea of comparison. Look what she's doing. Look what he's doing. Look what they have. Look what I don't have. Oh my God, why are they always winning? Why am I not winning? You know, the houses people drive, the car or live in, the cars people drive, the clothes they wear, the vacations they go on, the restaurants they go to. I mean, does it ever stop? The awards they win. Does it ever stop? Like the algorithm, it's algorithm-driven emotion, right? Because that bad habit that bad uncontrolled habit, the lack of discipline to the way we open up that phone 144 times a day and what we do when we do that. I mean, if you thought about this, here, perspective right here, 144 times a day, do we spend at least 60 seconds doing that? At least? Because, I mean, to that, we say we spend an average 6 hours a day on the screens. And in this case, 144 times a day. Even if you broke it down to just a minute a day, that's already 2.5 hours, more or less, right? But obviously, we're not just spending 2.5 hours, as we just said. So the point that I'm making here is, the more we're on there, and the more we're automatically, with a lack of discipline, tapping into the social medias and seeing what the world is feeding us, the more it's actually controlling the way we feel, how we act, how we treat others, how we believe in ourselves. And all of this is designed to trigger us, to doing something, to provoke us, to say something, you know, to make us addicted to the whole thing. And of course, our attention spans have been completely attacked, right? Like nobody's got an attention span anymore. You're talking to somebody and next thing you know, they pick up the phone and they're looking at notifications, or, you know, they change topics too quickly. People aren't focused anymore because we're always overstimulated. We're always pushing the next thing. Our nervous system never actually gets a break. And I'm challenging you to think about the way you do this right now. And we're talking about this because as we roll into a brand new reset in just a few days, these are things we want to call out, we want to think about, and for ourselves, do a better job at managing, being disciplined about. And researchers, and here's why, right? Researchers have said, and this is no surprise, they are linking excessive social media consumption to increased anxiety, a lack of focus, reduced impulse control. Like it's like we all have like a fidgeting problem, and higher levels of irritability. Which really, when you think about it, is why people are so different with each other these days. Like less kind, less respectful, less smiles. So when people are ghosting, they're ignoring, they're not following through on what they said they were going to follow through on, or they say one thing and they do another. It's not always out of haste. It's not always out of being disrespectful or unprofessional. Oftentimes these days, a lot of it, it's emotional avoidance mixed with overstimulation. But I am going to tell you straight, let's not bullshit here. Understanding the cause doesn't excuse the behavior. And that's where the real stresses show up between people. Action step. Do an audit of all of your inputs. If your day is starting with news headlines, with social media comments or feeds, think about this. You're borrowing stress before you've earned any type of clarity in your day. So what do we want to do? We need to build a morning buffer that has zero input. I've said this before to you, right? And we talk a lot about scheduling. When you think about your schedule, what is in your schedule? Does it say social media first thing in the morning? Does it say read the negative news first thing in the morning? It shouldn't, and therefore you shouldn't. Instead, why not get up? Open your eyes. Look outside. See what the weather looks like. Grab a glass of water. Hydrate yourself. Get into your own mind. Then go look at your goals and focus on you. What am I getting up to do this for again today? How am I going to struggle through the day or really win the day? Focus on that. If there's family around, focus on family. See, it's about centering ourselves when we first wake up. When our brain cells first start firing, it's a matter of knowing what is it we're going to do and how are we going to be in control of ourselves so that emotionally we can move through our day in the best version of ourselves. Because people will realize when you don't have that confidence, you got that lack of happiness. They're going to feel it. They're going to see it. You're going to sound like it. So by building this buffer with zero input from the outside world, you can get your mind right before the rest of the world starts to try to attack. And for me, my morning read, it'll always and only be sports. I don't want the news yet. I'm not getting close to social media that early either. I make sure the sports app is the only one that I look at when I feel the desire to check notifications. Or when I feel the desire to look at social media or read my email. If it's not scheduled to be doing email or doing social at that time, forget it. My mind isn't ready for it in the first 90 minutes of my day. All that outside noise. No way. See, what we're talking about here is mindset. We're talking about dopamine. We're talking about why people feel on edge. And a lot of it has to do with those inputs. And the way people start their days, those morning routines. So think about yours. Think about making that adjustment as you roll into the new year. Now, I want to talk about I guess we continue talking about the outside noise. A part that's, really bothered me the most this year. And when I say that, I would say it definitely includes the market. I mean, we've talked about that. I've expressed my opinions, my thoughts, my optimism at time. Arguably, you could say my pessimism, but I wouldn't say it's pessimism so much. I'd say it's very much realistic. But, the market, the up, the down, the good, the bad, the overall lack of. It's been crazy, especially, I guess, coming off of the high that we had a few years ago as you come into where we're at. As we continue sort of that dip down, when you think about a chart, we're still on the down. I thought we were starting to flatline back in sort of the fall. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. And I would say it's got a lot to do with the politics, right? Because that's another one that's really got me to this year. Crooks, liars. And I mean, you might say to me, Dave, that's nothing new. They've always been corrupt, and I don't disagree with you. But now, not only the corrupt, they're looking out for the wrong people. I'm going to say it. It should always be Canada first. There is no excuse. There is no anything that you can tell me that we need to be focusing on the outside world beyond our borders more than we focus on us. I know I went off on this in the last episode, so I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole again today full force, but I need to say it. Canada first, always. And of course, as we talk about the frustrations, the headlines, right? These woke, soft mindsets. Really? Had somebody yesterday who was commenting on the fact that you can't say, Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah. You gotta be polite. You gotta say Happy Holidays. Polite to who? Who am I being polite to? You're telling me somebody takes offense to a Happy Hanukkah or a Merry Christmas? Really? Guess what? It's holiday season. That's what we say. If you can't handle it, go hide yourself somewhere in a room, put your head under the pillow, or get on a plane. Seriously, enough with this stuff. We're bending for a tiny percentage in population of the people. And it's driving us crazy. It's making us question us. It's making us question what we love and we like and what we're used to and the way we do things in our culture. It's questioning what's real and what's fake. And it's all next to impossible to tell any more about any of that anyways. But here's one, yeah. Yeah, Dave, you went down that hole. Okay, I did, but I'm coming back up. I'm climbing out. Here's one that needs to be added in here, okay? The erosion of standards. And this one for me really drove home this year on too many fronts. I remember growing up in a world where a handshake actually mattered. Your word actually meant something to people. If you said yes, you meant yes. And if you needed to say no, you said it directly. Because if you didn't do anything but that, people made sure you knew about it back then. Now, though, today, it's a joke. People are soft. They don't want to say something, they hide. They don't know what to say, they put their tail between their legs and they dodge you instead of just being straight with you. They avoid hard conversations. Like, why? What are you so scared of? And they shy away from doing what's right. And this one's the worst. Because doing right, it's simply the right thing to do. And I'll tell you something. I've had multiple situations just in the past few weeks where people said one thing privately to me and did another thing publicly. Do you not think you're going to see each other again? Like, what are you thinking here? Or is your head so far up your ass smiling at your own reflection that you don't even notice it? That stuff stays with you. It's your reputation. That's what people remember. And we don't often forget easily. It's your word. And like I said, growing up, that meant something. And all of this, when you can't do that, all of it breaks trust. And when trust breaks down, everything becomes harder. Partnerships with people in business, partnerships with people at home, leadership, being a leader for people, they're not going to trust you. Teamwork, and I mean leadership, there's my problem with the government. I just don't trust what the things they say anymore. I don't trust, the direction we're going. I don't trust any of it. But that changes a lot of things, right? Here, I just mentioned teamwork. If team members cannot trust each other, where it's on sports teams, business teams, or anything else, what do you got? In sales, if you're telling me one thing, but I don't believe you, you're not getting the sale. And I'm going to throw this one as like a most importantly. Friendships. People you know that you actually talk to, that you've actually had good conversations with, even well beyond business, where it's been about life, family, sports, holidays, vacations, whatever. Like just open dialogue. You go and break that trust with somebody? You go do something that you shouldn't have done or you don't support? There's data to back all this up too, right? They say that only 41% of Canadians trust business leaders. That was done by the Edelman Trust Barometer. It says that trust in institutions has been declining steadily since 2020. Yeah, no shit, McFly. I would say that's exactly where I've been at. I'd say it probably started earlier. But that thing that happened there, that time they shut us all down, that certainly changed direction on how we follow, how we listen, what we do, how we interact, how we implement. And they say overall trust between individuals is dropping faster than trust in systems. Oof. So this isn't just a problem like that we've got with the man, the feds. This is happening now between us as individuals. Why? Well, it goes back to what I said earlier on here about the drain, right? What's draining you and how's it making people, cynical and combative with each other? See, when trust is low in a society, people default to self-protection, which when compounded begins to lead to uncertainty. It begins to lead to chaos. Mindsets take a hit. People start to change the way they operate. And when everybody's protecting themselves, nobody's actually building anything together or caring much for one another at that point. We're going backwards. It's a sad state. We are going backwards, though. You can see it on our streets when you drive. The lack of respect people have, the lack of due care, the lack of following the rules. Going through a grocery store, everybody's, in the rush. Everybody's got to be first. It's not the way we need to be operating together. We need to be coming together. We need to be helping each other. We need to be, living together, and which we do. Enjoying one another, being polite to one another. So, action step. As you move into the new year, decide what your non-negotiables are. And I'm not talking about your goals. I'm talking about your standards. What behavior won't you tolerate anymore? And I'm saying even if it costs you opportunities. Think about potential client behavior. Think about your own behavior. Think about other people's behavior. How are you going to raise your standards for 2026? Now, let's talk about happiness because, and I'm not talking about the Instagram version over here, but how can we be happier going into the new year? When we think about happiness, that's a nice thought. I'm already smiling just thinking about it. I hope you're smiling now too. Come on, smile. This is meant to be happy, right? We're closing out the year over here. I know I'm hard-hitting on some of these points, and I know I'm getting a little bit hot under the collar here and there, but we're doing it for a reason, right? It's all for a good reason. When we think about happiness, where it comes from, it does come from our values. And I just labeled off, my top 3 when I say core values really do come down to trust, loyalty, and respect. See, when I tell you something, you can trust that I'm going to follow through with what I said. You can trust that I'm not bullshitting you, because that's not who I am. That's one of my core values. And it really burns me when people don't trust me, thinking I'm out to do something wrong. And don't get me wrong, I'm not the only one. Like, this happens, from many to many. This is not actually, oh, Dave, we feel so bad for you. No, I'm not looking for that shit. What I'm saying is, in my mind, deep to my core, when it comes to trust, when I say something, that's what it is. So when other people doubt that, to me, that bothers me. Why? Because I know where I'm coming from. Okay, when we talk about respect, I'm going to give you all the respect in the world until you show me the lack of respect, and then you just lost it. And we talk about loyalty, and I'm not talking about go, and I've said it before, loyalty, go get a dog. But I'm talking about the realities of standing up for your friends, standing behind people that you care for, standing behind people that you've got a good rapport with. And maybe something didn't go the way it was supposed to go, or something else happened, and others kind of, start to team up to tar and feather. Whereas if you were a friend, I'm going to stand behind you. And there are instances of things that have happened even over these past, 4 weeks where things have happened and a lot of people have gone on attack. And I look and say, no, that's a friend of mine. I'm going to stand behind that person. Even if I'm the only one standing there, that's who I am. Now, that's for me, okay, when we talk about values. So I'm saying the same thing to you. That brings me happiness to be that person. Even though it does bring some frustrations once in a while, because you do wonder, why don't they trust you, or why don't they respect you, or why wasn't that person as loyal as I was? In saying that, these values, they're what drive us. And that's where happiness comes from, is those values. Furthermore, it comes from our actions, our daily actions, the things we actually do, not just the things we say. How we treat people. How we think about people. How we help other people. Whether we smile at somebody, or we keep our head down, or we tell them to go fly a kite. Happiness comes from the relationships we've got. Whether it's with a spouse, with our children, with a loved one, with a family member, a friend, a colleague in business. It comes from relationships. We know that. And of course, all of this, paints a picture to what is our environment, including right down to our neighbors, colleagues, you name it. This is where happiness comes from. And when those things start to drift, they start to move away from each other, we feel it. In fact, there was an article the other day that I read about Canadian youth being unhappy. And unfortunately, it didn't surprise me at all. Now, there's more to this youth unhappiness than just social media or academic pressure. Okay, Canada used to rank among the happiest nations. And I would say I used to be very, very happy. Now, the latest World Happiness Report, which is amazing that they got this report, but it shows that while the country overall is 15th, Canadians under 30 rank 58th in reported happiness. Lower than like the older generations, obviously. And this is done by the Howe Institute. And then the data shows why. And it says because nearly 1/3 of young Canadians who wanted to buy a home or move to a new rental said they didn't because of a price concern, compared with just 1 in 5 in the overall population. And again, that's a Statistics Canada stat. More young adults are renting. 63% of those aged 15 to 29, and 43% more of them are living with parents longer, or living with roommates. Not because they want to, but because they can't afford independent living. Again, another stats can. Now, these aren't just stats, right? These are life choices that are being pushed off. These are milestones that are being delayed, big dreams being deferred. I mean, starting a family, buying your own home, really getting out there on your own. And this begins obviously to show up in how people feel, and like especially young people feel about their future. Do they even have hope anymore? Do they even, are they just totally like it used to be that if you worked hard, you could, save money, and then you could start a family and go and buy a house, and, you sort of lived this dream. But the young realize they don't have the means to do that now. Think about everything they're facing. And personally, as a dad, this shit scares me for my kids. You think about unaffordable housing. The prices are just out of control. You think about job insecurity. I mean, like, these guys can't even get a job. Even when you talk about starting positions, you go to some of these famous Canadian establishments. They're hiring from people that are coming from overseas. They're not hiring our young youth. Our youth maybe don't want jobs in some of those places, but what they're looking for is opportunity here at home. They're finding it impossible to get a job. Never mind just that. We got all this stuff in the media, or not the media, but, some of these job postings that go up and say, specifically, if you are a, white male, we are not looking for you. What? That's what? Where did we get there? Wasn't it that we're all equal? It doesn't matter, where you're from, what language you speak, what color you are. Like, we're all the same. That's what we grew up with. That's what I grew up with. Why has that gone backwards? Why is it all of a sudden that we're not equal? There is a hierarchy? Why? We've been working so long for this thing called equality. And I'm not talking just gender equality. I'm talking about racial equality. I'm talking about people equality. This comes back to that whole idea of treating each other with respect. Here, again, continue on with this. Student debt. Holy shit. The other day I was looking into this school down in the States for my son for high school. And I was just exploring through, it would be, based on the conversation I was having with somebody. And it's a sports school very dedicated to that. So I looked it up, and it came out that it was about $75,000 US. To send my kid there. Now, as a Canadian, that's like $1.25 Canadian, right? And I thought to myself, like, holy shit, this is crazy money. Who has this money to do this? Where does all this money come from? And somebody threw it out there, and they're like, Dave, you go to the bank, you get a loan, a student loan. Like, what a farce! This is unbelievable. So you're telling me that the school charges this absurd amount of money, and then they get paid. The bank gives the loan, the bank gets paid, the student gets to go to school, but now the student is in debt for like the rest of their life. This is incredible. And they got no guarantee of even coming out with a job. Again, hence why they look and say, like, where's my opportunity? Right? I mean, I continue to say this, and this is another one where the youth, may understand or may not understand. And again, there's a lot of this misinformation when it comes to the social channels. But the overall institutions, like what can they do for them? And of course, they're always in their world now faced with this, constant comparison through the digital channels. That's a lot to handle for these young people. That certainly paints a picture to why they feel more hopeless or why they feel like they're just not going to get there. And I guess maybe that's the same thing. But what scares me more than like just the unhappy youth, and I got to say that's way up there because I think about my children. I think about all the people that are growing up into this world. So maybe I say what scares me as much. But it's adults who are just as unhappy, but pretending they're fine. See, when people stop believing effort leads to progress, we disengage from whatever it is what we were doing. And then when we disengage, we start to cut corners and things start to just like, whatever. And then here this comes again. When we cut corners, well, standards drop. And all of this becomes a cultural problem. And I'm going to say this again, this isn't about pessimism. This is about pattern recognition. Mental health is real. The weight of the world on your shoulders is real. The overwhelm is real. And you're not the only one feeling it. It's happening everywhere and for so many of the reasons we already discussed. And that's why I've been discussing them. Because this goes back to the psychology of understanding our subconscious mind so we know what's driving the way we feel. See, when we can acknowledge it and like whatever it is for you, then it becomes more possible to deal with. It's like having a target that you're trying to hit and either being able to see it or not being able to see it. Which option do you take to achieve success? And obviously the answer is like obvious, right? So again, why are we talking about this? Well, when we're happy, it's easier to make people around us happy. And when most people are happy, good things happen. So we need to find our true happiness again because it's been getting lost in all of the noise. So action step. Ask yourself honestly, where am I in my life? Okay? Am I misaligned? And if I am I tolerating it? In fact, what makes me unhappy? And how could I flip the switch on that? Now, just before we keep going, let's take a quick sponsor break here. This episode is brought to you by Kits Keep In Touch Systems, your solution to more leads, more repeat and referral business. And bottom line, if you sell real estate, you need kits. As well as REM Real Estate Magazine, Canada's premier magazine for real estate professionals and industry stakeholders for news, analysis, and commentary on Canadian real estate. Be sure to get connected with both of these industry-leading brands. All right, now let's get strategic here. Every year with our coaching clients, we do this exercise at the end of the year called My Yearly Reflection. Okay, and I started to sort of get there with you off the top of the show, but I said I'll come back to that. Well, this is the thing I'm coming back to. Now, if you don't remember what we're talking about when I said I'll come back to that, you can go rewind the whole entire show right now and just go back to the top. No, I'm joking. I love this podcast. I know it's funny. I should, when I do the sponsor break, I should mention about the coffee, but we're not going to go there. Anyways, actually, you know what? If you're still looking for a last-minute holiday gift, Ember mug. They haven't paid me for this. They haven't asked me to do this, but I love my coffee mug. I mean, like it stays warm the entire time. It's got this coaster that keeps the mug hot. The coffee stays at the perfect temperature. Like it is awesome. Anyhow, Dave, let's get back to the show, please. Got it. I hear you. So this is what I was saying. My yearly reflection. This is something we do with our coaching clients at the end of each year. And what we do is we have them review their wins. What they win this year? Where did they have wins this year? Their misses. Goes without saying, right? What did they miss out on? What didn't they do that they should have done? And of course, lessons. What did I learn from all of this? And I get them to essentially fill that out and bullet point their answers to each one of those sections so we can do this external or internal review. And again, make the subconscious conscious, take the blue ink and put it on paper and bring these thoughts to life. and really be able to see what the year looked like. See, because again, when we reflect on this stuff and we actually write it down, yes, that subconscious becomes conscious, and we actually have more of a very real realization around what we did achieve this year and go, oh my God, this feels incredible. We also, again, get to see what we missed and understand, maybe why certain goals didn't get hit or why we feel a certain way. And of course, from all of that, we have to learn from it, right? Because like we even said about the show, if I'm not giving you action steps and we're not talking about the learning, then it's just more noise. Now, once they go through this exercise of wins, misses, and lessons, of course, we get on a coaching call and we do discuss this stuff and we really try to dive into it and hone in on it. The added bonus to this is that because we do this year over year, and our clients stay with us for years, and we're very fortunate. And to those of you that are listening right now who are clients, I love you, right? And I want to just say a big thank you, give you a big hug. I hope you don't mind the hug. Anyways, what we do, though, is we then compare it to the previous year. So we'll go back to the previous year and look and say, okay, let's look at our yearly reflection. Let's do some comparisons here. And we don't do this to judge, and we don't do it to beat ourselves up, but we do it to understand patterns. And what almost always happens is that people realize they've been reactive to their days more than being proactive. Other people and distractions take control. We realize that prospecting lacks, even though we know it needs to be done. We realize that follow-up doesn't often get the attention it needs. And we're spending more time consuming content rather than creating it. And this really identifies the root cause of missed opportunities. Or in other words, like you leaving thousands of dollars on the table and lost deals because you didn't do what you knew you should have done. And usually, the stuff we learn, the solution isn't some science project or like flying to the moon. It's all really solvable. But if you don't reflect, if you decide that you're going to carry all this damage forward from the past year without choice, you don't even realize it. Okay, and if you don't learn from the wins, and if you don't learn from the misses, and you repeat the cycle over again in the new year, that's what happens. You just keep doing the same thing. And if you don't reset for a fresh start right off the top of the year, then there's this resentment that starts to build in of what we haven't accomplished, and it compounds. And then eventually it erupts, which leads to even less productivity. Reflection isn't some soft thing. This is strategic. This is going to help you figure out what you did, what you didn't do, and what you should be doing. And I got to tell you, as we've been going through these with all of our clients over the past number of days and weeks to this particular part of the business planning, the goal setting, and the getting ready for the new year, and we've got an entire process that we started. And I've told you this from back mid-October we started these projects because this stuff takes time. But it is so awesome to have these conversations with people, to get so constructive about what is happening, what's not happening, what should be happening. Because those who actually pay attention to what's going on, the changes that are made in the new year are incredible. And I've got like, so many awesome stories wheeling through my mind right now that I want to share with you. But I'm going to make an overall point because, again, that's other people's business. The point is, it's an amazing exercise to do, and that's your action step right here. Do your own yearly reflection. I could tell you write down 3 wins, 3 misses, 3 lessons, but maybe you got more than that. But take a piece of paper, write down yearly reflection. Wins, then give yourself some space, and bullet points some answers. Misses, space, bullet points some answers, and lessons, space, bullet points some answers. Keep that document somewhere. Have it ready to do again next year, and then compare to this past year, because patterns don't lie. They give us a very real look in the mirror about where we're going right or where we're going wrong. So here we are. End of the year. I'm going to say, as we talked about, what 2025 has been, I'm going to say this is the end of the noise, because there's always a start and an end. And it's the end of another year of growth for us. So now we've got a choice heading into the new year. Okay, heading into 2026, you've got a choice. You can lower your standards to survive and allow people to walk all over you. You can numb yourself to the bullshit that's going on out there just so you can kind of like mentally stay in the game, accepting whatever change happens, whether you like it or not. You can talk about an issue, whatever it is, internal or external, but choose to do absolutely nothing about it. Or you can start to tighten up your circle. Who do you spend time with? Who do you talk to? Who do you listen to? Who do you learn from? Speaking of, you can protect your mindset. What are you going to allow into your brain? What are you not going to allow? Getting selective with the people that, again, like I just said about tightening our circle, but more specifically even with the people that we work with. You can recommit to your values, thinking about what are your core values. And when I labeled out mine, those are my driving forces. Those mean more to me than striking a deal and making some money. I'm not going to burn people that I'm loyal to. I'm not going to burn people that have trust in me. I'm not going to be disrespectful to others who are not disrespectful to me. These are values and how we carry ourselves and who we are, how we present ourselves, what people think of us. And of course, all that builds mindshare, so you can choose to build mindshare with people who actually matter. And I'm not saying we got to get, louder, we got to get flashier, we've got to be everywhere. I'm saying we got to be consistent, grounded, intentional to who we are and what we want. And that's not about retreating. This is about true self-leadership. Who you want to be, what you want to achieve. How are you going to make the people around you better? So action step. Choose one thing that brings a lot of negative energy to your world. Okay? Choose to remove that before adding anything else on, any new responsibility to your plate in the new year. Okay? We need to decompress a little. We need to reset the focus on us. That's the only way to really be the best version of us. So look, if you do nothing else before January, nothing, and I know we're almost there. I mean, I'd argue it's there. But do these few things, okay? In fact, I'm going to give you 6 right now. So write this down. 1, identify what drained you in 2025. And again, write this stuff down. 2, reduce your daily digital input. 144 times a day, 6+ hours a day. Think about what you're looking at. Think about how many times you're distracting yourself. Think about how often you take yourself away from actually focusing on your goals. 3, define your non-negotiable standards. I think I've hammered into that a whole bunch. You understand what I mean there. 4, realign one misaligned area of your life or business. Let's get this back on track. 5, do your own yearly reflection like we just talked to. And 6, always be building positive mindshare. Because that is what people remember when you're not around. That's the difference between calling you, working with you, inviting you, or not. So there it is. That's your reset. Look, I'm not ending this year angry. I'm ending it clear. Clear about what I'm going to tolerate, clear about who I trust, clear about what kind of business I want, clear about the kind of people I want around me, clear about, who I want to be, and clear about the standards that I refuse to compromise. The world does feel heavy right now. I won't deny that. But clarity cuts through it all. And values give direction when everything feels like it's going the wrong way. So as we head into 2026, don't ask, how do I win more? Ask yourself, how do I live and work in a way that I can actually stand behind and be happy? Because success without alignment is expensive, and the bill is always going to come due. If this episode resonated, share it on your social media for us, please. I'm David Greenspan, reminding you to always build mindshare, because mindshare equals market share. We'll be back with an all-new Season 8 on January 9th. Until then, here's to wishing you and yours a safe and happy holiday season and all the best in 2026. Thank you for tuning in. Talk to you next year.